Hello, my name is Sam Voutas. I'm here at the Warsaw International Film Festival and very happy to be speaking to you all today.
Okay, great. So before we go to the present, I want to go to the past a bit. So tell me, how did a guy from Australia ended up shooting movies in China?
My parents were working in China in the 1980s, so I had that background. China was much more closed then. And then after finishing high school, I moved back to Australia, and it was very hard to break into the film industry as a young man in my early 20s. And so thought actually maybe going back to China would be a good idea. So 2004, returned to China, started doing documentaries with my wife, Melanie Ansley. And documentaries slowly led to first acting in Chinese movies, and then increasingly using the income from acting in those Chinese movies and TV series to help support making independent films, which were filmed in China.
Okay. And so tell me a bit about this Red Light Revolution film, which was like still it's being talked about, I guess, after all these years. How did that came about?
Oh, well, firstly, I'm really glad that people are still talking about it. It was a real passion project. So I was feeling like documentaries were increasingly hard to make. They took many, many years. I was quite frustrated with the whole process. I just wanted to do something that was really fun and exciting with crew that I had already worked with before in Beijing. So put together a whole bunch of essentially friends who I'd collaborated with on different projects. And we filmed it in the heart of Beijing. I only have fond memories of that shoot.
And your experience as an actor in City of Life and Death, that was a huge production, I guess.
The City of Life and Death was the biggest production I've ever worked on, and it was also the shooting took a very long period of time. And I was not on set every day. It would be they'd call me 1 month and say come to set, and then I'd go back home, and it was a very long process.
Okay, and to get to the film at hand, tell me a bit about how the production path led to the film. How did it start from script until you shoot?
Sure. So following King of Peking, actually even while writing King of Peking, I became very aware that it was going to be hard to keep on making movies in mainland China as an independent filmmaker. The climate had changed. And so I increasingly was trying to find projects that I could do in the English language. And then, of course, we had the pandemic happen, and the pandemic really, across the globe, affected just how one could make a film. It changed the way that the streamers either purchased or made products, but also just made the overheads of filming much higher. It was something that inflation is still, the knockoffs of that inflation are continuing still today. So I really wanted to make a movie in the English language in a very contained way that could reach production, because I was becoming increasingly frustrated with essentially being in a loop of development hell, where there's a lot of writing and notes, but there's no filmmaking, and the filmmaking is the part of the process that I find most exciting.
And the inspiration behind the story, this whole repetition thing, how did it came to you?
So in 2012, I left China and moved to Los Angeles. It was after Red Light Revolution. I'd been with a friend in the Sundance Screenwriters Labs. I thought that was like a really good time to maybe give America a go. So I moved to Los Angeles, and I found out very quickly that, like so many people who get off the bus and go to Los Angeles, that breaking into the film industry is a very, very hard thing. So in no time at all, I had very, very little connection to the film industry. I was working as an English teacher, which is something that I'd done in China before, but I could not break in any capacity. So I started to feel like I was in a loop, and I couldn't move my career forward in any way. And every day, I don't know if you know the weather in Los Angeles, but often it's exactly the same. There's no clouds, it's just blue skies. So I started to feel like I was trapped in a loop. And so the pandemic also, this was the same type of feeling. And then after the pandemic, I said to my wife, I'm so frustrated. I just want to make something, anything. It could even be hand puppets. I have to make another movie. And my wife said, do you know how much it costs to make an independent film in 2025? It's so expensive. It's not like what it used to be. It's not Red Light Revolution days. And she said, if you want to make another movie, come up with a script that's one person alone in a room, or maybe bring a couple of more people into the room. But that's all. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to make another movie. And then for me, it became this sort of existential question of, okay, I can either no longer make movies because that's just not possible, or I can try to find a story that I can tell within the parameters that are possible. And so I took that frustration of being stuck in a cycle that I could never escape from, feeling like my life is not going forward, or at least creative life, and I turned that into a screenplay, which is now Yesterday Island.
Mm-hmm. And let's say the twist that in order to get out of this cycle, you need to bring someone else in your place. How did that came to you?
The twist of swapping out in Yesterday Island came very early, and that's to do with the fact that I wanted to add something new to the genre. Obviously, the time loop movie is now becoming a genre, as there's so many different versions of that story now, especially when working with a very low budget. I had to try to think from the very script stage, what can I introduce to the genre that I haven't seen in other movies before? So by adding that swap element, I was able to essentially experiment more with form in the movie. We have the movie restarts, we have characters who are doing the same actions but with the same shots, but they're different characters. So it was very important for me to bring something new to it. Otherwise, why spend several years of your life making a movie if it's not gonna add something fresh?
Mm-hmm. And tell me a bit about the location. Where is this island that we see in the movie?
So the location of the story is loosely based on islands that are part of Australia, that are geographically located between the mainland of Australia and Antarctica. In terms of the reality, I couldn't bring the crew over there. It's so remote. It would have been completely unfeasible. So we found in the south of Australia, in Tasmania, as well as in the state of Victoria, which is not far from Tasmania, we found locations that roughly look similar. So it was a mix of filming in sort of remote locations as well as in a studio in Melbourne for the interior scenes.
Mm-hmm. And how was the procedure of shooting scenes that are very much alike? I mean, how many times did you have to throw a bird on the window for the movie? I mean,
we had to throw. Well, first off, it was a prop. We had a prop bird. We had to throw the prop bird quite a lot of times. That literally is somebody who's outside of frame with a prop and throwing the prop. And of course, it's like baseball, right? You're not going to hit the window every time. In terms of the repeat scenes, that was tied into essentially the screenwriting, because we had such little budget. I had to try to start to think of creative ways to help us reach our production possibility. And what really hurts you in a film production is the time setting up. So when you set up, typically if you're shooting this way, you've got to put your lights all in this direction. You've got your video village, as they call it, behind you. And just setting that up can take sometimes an hour, sometimes more. And then typically you'd then go to the other side. But in this film, because we're swapping things out, we're swapping characters with the same camera movements, I could save a lot of production time by essentially doing one setup facing this way and then swap the actors out. And that sped the production up, which made filming a movie possible.
And how did the actors react to this procedure? Was it easy for them, more difficult?
I think it's an unusual way to film, so I think I feel, hopefully, that the characters were sort of excited to do something that was a little bit different, a little bit more experimental, perhaps, and certainly even the tone of the film, the way that the characters deliver their lines is very understated. Compared to other Australian movies, I feel often, especially with comedies, in Australia, the comedy is more overt and louder. It's like, oh yes, this is definitely a joke. And one of the things that I tried very much to do is to change the nature of the delivery of the actors' lines so that the jokes are played much more straight, much more serious, more subtle humor.
And how did the casting work for the film?
Again, because we didn't have much budget, the only thing we had was time. So I spent an enormous amount of time just going through essentially all of the casting agents' lists, their folios, not looking only just at the performances, but the interviews, because I think that looking at what a person is really like outside of their performance can really help me get a sense of who the person is in terms of whether to cast them or not. And then also looking in the stand-up comedy space. So the lead actor is he's been working as a stand-up comedian in Australia. So I watched interviews with him. I got a sense for who he was as a person, and then reached out to him and said, "Would you like to try something different?"
Mm-hmm. And in general, were you strict with them, or did you allow improvisation, let's say, in the film?
There's very little improvisation in the movie except for the scene with David Fane, who is a New Zealand actor and comedian. And we have a little bit of the film where I allowed I said to the actors, let's improvise here. And that's sort of a comedic scene where they're all sitting at the table and David Fane started using his own improvisation techniques. So, But outside of that one particular scene, it's very much just exactly as per the script.
And also, I heard that one of the points of the film is about holding grudges and how that works for people. I mean, so what's your opinion on the concept?
Oh, no. I mean, so Yesterday Island, without giving too much away of the story, yes, it's tied to grudges. And I just thought that was a really interesting reason why an island like this would exist, that an island like Yesterday Island couldn't exist. The cycle would not repeat anymore if people didn't hold grudges and animosity and things they just couldn't let go of, even if years had gone by. So the movie ultimately is a story about a man who learns to move forward with his life and no longer have resentment for the past, and also have forgiveness. And that's ultimately what the arc is of the protagonist.
But do you hold grudges in your life?
I think it's human nature to hold grudges, but I think it's it's important at the same time to be mature about it and to move on in the best way possible. And often with grudges, these things are just a matter of perspective. Often, if you stand in the other person's shoes, you realize that their understanding of the situation is completely different. That's why communication is so key.
And tell me a bit more about the sense of humor in the film, which is very interesting, very smart, I think. Yes.
Oh, thank you. No, as I guess compared to Red Light Revolution, which is a much more overt comedy where it's much bigger, you can tell, okay, everybody is sort of, not to say hamming it up, but acting in a comedic manner. I felt like for this film in particular, it would be better to go in the opposite direction, where people are playing it like they're in a drama. They do not know remotely that they are in a comedy, and then that would be more comedic. I think as I've gotten older, that style of comedy has started to appeal to me more. This type of comedy where a joke is so subtly added to a conversation that you might even miss it if you are not listening carefully.
And tell me a bit about the editing. How did you work on the pace of the film in general?
Sure. So again, I mean, I've edited Red Light Revolution, King of Peking, and now Yesterday Island. On each of those films, I've edited them solely because of budget. It's not that we have no money, so we've got to finish the movie. And editing is one of the most labor-intensive parts of the whole process, because you have the hundreds and hundreds of hours, and you've got to put it all together. So on each of those movies, I've just had a little laptop, and I edit it, and then I show it to a circle of people that I trust to get their feedback. So it's that one stage. It's your last chance, really, to shape the film. After shape the performances and things like that.
And how is it working in the Australian movie industry at the moment? I guess it's hard, as you say, but how is the situation there?
Yeah, I think it's hard for filmmakers all over the world at the moment, just because the production costs have gotten so much higher, and I think it is posing challenges across the board. I think Australia is similar. It's a first world country. Things cost a certain amount to film there. But that said, I am Australian, so it was really exciting to be, finally filming a language just, not far from my home, in my first language. It's filming in the English language, and also just showing that yes, I have worked in the past in the Chinese language, but I can also direct actors in English and create hopefully an entertaining story in the English language.
And do you have any plans to return to shoot in China again, or that's very far-fetched at the moment?
I think in terms of truly independent filmmaking, that's going to be very difficult not just for me, but for other filmmakers as well in mainland China at the moment. That said, I think there's a lot of other opportunities to film in the region. So I'd love to film other projects, if not, in the greater China area, or in Southeast Asia, different parts of Southeast Asia. So I've got a couple of projects that are in pre-production for that.
You do?
Yeah. So hopefully one of those will come through, and we'll be back filming in the region soon.
Do you still act? I'm not sure about that.
No, I haven't acted now since for about 15 years, a very long time.
Really?
And the reason, again, why I was doing so much acting back then, I was in China at a particular part of, like, now it's history because that's so many years ago, where, there was a lot of, you could generate income to make your own independent movies if you'd wanted to. So I'd been a big fan of the John Cassavetes model of filmmaking, where I'd seen what he had done in the States. Obviously, he's working on a much higher, he was working in Hollywood, right? Acting in Hollywood and then funding his small independent movies. But while I was in my 20s, I was like, oh, actually, I could use that model as well, where I'll act in a TV series. That money from that TV series, I can then take and fund an independent movie that I'm really passionate about. So that model doesn't exist for me anymore, and that's fine. But I'm glad I did it at the time.
Okay. And last question, I guess, tell me a bit, how was the reaction of the audience here in Warsaw for your film?
Because it's a comedy, I was a little bit worried that the comedy wouldn't travel, because often comedy can be very location specific.
Yes.
But we were getting lots of laugh out loud moments from the audience, and so the jokes were traveling, and I think that's very encouraging for me, because I want my films to not just play in a certain region of the world. I want them to be able to be something that can be accessible to people who are not from Australia. And the fact that it traveled was really exciting.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.